Hi guys! Today I'm gonna show you how I made this cute and easy ruffled skirt. This is definitely also a beginner friendly tutorial, so let's jump right into this. I used my own sewing pattern for this project, which is, by the way, available in my Etsy shop. Link is down below. But if you don't want to use that sewing pattern for whatever reason, you can easily make your own. I explained in one of my older videos how to do that. It's a tutorial for a peasant skirt and a peasant top, so I will link it down below. And if you're gonna purchase my sewing pattern, thank you so much, because it of course supports my channel. So let's have a look at the sewing pattern parts first that you're gonna need for this skirt, and then we'll take it from there. So the sewing pattern consists of 3 pieces, and every single piece is just a pattern half, so you need to place the pieces on folded fabric. So here we have the front part. You will notice that the seam allowance is on the top, on the side and on the bottom, and there is no seam allowance here. That's what you need to place on folded fabric. And when I take it off and unfold the part for the skirt, this is then the whole front part. And it's the same for the back part. Again, seam allowance is on the top here. This is the side and the bottom. And here we have the folded back part. They align like so. And this is half of the waistband. It has seam allowance on all edges, just in case you need to make the waistband of 2 pieces. But I had enough fabric, so I placed it on folded fabric. In that case, I disregarded the seam allowance here and aligned this edge with the fold. So that's the waistband. And then we have here these 2 quite long rectangles. These are for the ruffle. The height in my case is 15 centimeters. You can make the pieces higher if you want your skirt to be longer. That is up to you. And the width has been already calculated. In the pattern overview, you will find a table that will suggest the minimum width of your ruffle in total. I made the ruffle of 2 pieces, so I basically divided the width in 2. And you can of course make the pieces longer if you want the ruffle be way more flouncy. For me, this is enough. And then I have here this lace, which I will use for edging of the bottom. And we have here also elastic band, because I will have multiple rows of elastic band inside of the waistband. As a first step, I pinned the sides of the skirts together. I made sure that the right sides were inside and the wrong side was facing up. Here is what it looked like once both sides were pinned together. I folded the waistband in half and put together the edge. I marked the center, and then I pinned only half of the edge. And then it looked like this. And then I took the ruffle pieces and I started pinning them together like so. And here you have it. This is what it looked like. I have sewn together the pieces for the ruffle on my serger. I have also sewn together the sides of the skirt on my serger, and for the waistband, for the half of the edge, I used straight stitch on my regular sewing machine. For gathering the ruffle, I set up my machine to straight stitch, and the maximum length of the stitch, I also enhanced the pressure on the sewing foot to almost maximum, and then I have screwed in this sewing foot, which is the gathering sewing foot, and that did the job for me. So all I had to do was to sew straight. I took my time. This clip is sped up, but I find that when I'm sewing rather slower, I get a much nicer result. Now, if you don't have a gathering foot, it doesn't matter. Just sew through the edge with straight stitch on maximum length, and then you can pull on the end of the yarn, and then you simply gather the ruffle yourself. Here is what the parts look like so far. So for the ruffle, I have used this Ruffle sewing foot. Here is what the sewing foot looks like. It has here this slot, so you could theoretically put the fabric that needs to remain straight through this slot and then sew on the bottom through the fabric that needs to be ruffled. And that makes everything faster because it's gonna be just one step. However, for whatever reason, I have an irrational fear of doing that, which I yet have to conquer. So I'll be practicing so that I can show you the magic in future. So I just sewn with the ruffle foot through the ruffle, and here is what it looks like. And then I had to pin the ruffle to the skirt parts, like so. Now, if I were to gather the ruffle and sew it on the skirt parts in one step, like I explained, it would have been better to have just half of the ruffle, gather it and sew it on the front part, and do the same thing with the second part of the ruffle with the back part, and then pin the sides together all the way to the bottom, and then sew the sides together on the serger. That would be then a better way to do that. But since I chickened out on that and had to pin the ruffle in, here is what it looked like. I also had to pin in the waistband like so. And when I was done pinning, I have sewn both the ruffle and the waistband on the skirt parts on my serger. Here is what the skirt looks like so far. I went ahead and pressed the seam here where I've sewn in the ruffle. As you can tell, the skirt is noticeably longer in the back, and that is as it's supposed to be because we do have a butt, and the line on the back can't be as short as in the front because it bulges out over the butt. That's really important. And now I will go ahead and I will start pinning this border around the edge. I didn't do anything to the edge yet. I will pin it from the top like so, and then I will sew it in with serger very close to the edge, and then I will simply fold it over, and that's gonna be the edging. So let's do that. So I will start pinning. I'll go a little bit over the side seam, and that's where I'll start pinning. So here I came to an end, and I have here these two loose ends, so I simply pinned them together like so. I will sew the end on serger, and then once the end will be sewn together, I'll position this little section to the edge and pin it in, and then I will sew the edge in also on my serger, but very close to the edge, so I will make the seam a little bit narrower. Alright, so here we have the edge. I ironed the edge so that the seam would be facing upward, and now I have to go through and make sure there are no loose threads and chop everything back. And you could leave it like this and simply make sure you iron it this way every single time you wash it, or you can also sew very close to the edge with either stretch a zigzag or straight stitch. That is up to you. One thing I will do is I will go to the place where I've sewn the ends together, and I will sew the seam in place with straight stitch, because then it's gonna be flatter. And now I have to sew through the waistband several rows. So I have here this elastic band. So let's count how many rows we will need. 1, 2, 3, 4. I have to make 4 seams around the edge. I will use the edge, the right edge of my sewing foot here on the top when I'll start sewing around. And then once there's gonna be a seam, I will make sure I'll have the same distance from the edge for each row. And then I'll pull the elastic band through these openings, because even though we will sew around the entire edge several times, this will remain open. And what I like doing is I like pinning this very close to the seam, like so that when I'll sew through, that this will look neat on the bottom, because that's the end that's not sewn together, so that we can pull the elastic through. So I have sewn through the waistband. Now I have 5 compartments for the elastic band. I measured my waist circumference and added a bit extra, because once I pull the elastic band through, I want the ends to overlap and stitch together, and that's the extra that I need. Plus, I don't want the skirt to be too tight. I hate that. I want to have extra space if I end up eating too much ice cream. And then I have here this nifty type of needle. It's called bodkin. I will simply pull the end of the elastic band through, and then I'll go through the tunnel here. So I will open the skirt and I'll start here on the bottom. So this is really practical. I will not be stitching these holes together, because should I ever want to adjust something about the elastic band, it's gonna be really easy to pull it out again. If you are new to all this, I have a playlist with all the basics, so I will link it down below. I wanted to show you something before I finished up. So I still have 1 row to go. You could leave that out and it would make this kind of like a paperback effect. This is also very pretty. All right, so here we have the finished skirt. The waistband is super stretchy, and since there are multiple elastics in the waistband, it lays rather flatter. It's very similar to shirring. Here we have the bottom edge with the lace, and now I'm gonna model it for you. So here we have the skirt when I put it on. I paired it with my denim lace up top from my previous tutorial. So if you want to know how to make this top and you missed the video, I will link it in the video description. And I find that it goes really well with the skirt. It's such a cute combo. By the way, my husky joined us, he's helping. So the waistband is rather loose, but I honestly find it super comfortable. Even though it feels loose, it's tight enough that I could wear the skirt without a belt. I'm gonna put on 2 different belts for you guys so that you have an idea what it would look like with different accessories. So this is my silver belt with turquoise. This is one of my favorite pieces. I've had this one for about 30 years and it's just so cute, and I think that would look really great, especially with this combo with the denim top. And it would also look great with a white belt. So I'm gonna make this belt a bit tighter. And I personally like pulling the waistband a little bit higher so that you can see the top edge over the belt. And one more thing I wanted to mention is the length of the skirt. You have seen that the skirt, when I lay it flat on the table, is considerably longer in the back. But when I'm wearing it, the angle of my butt lifts the back part and that evens out. That is why you want your skirt to be a little bit longer in the back. And if you have a really round butt, then you can even add 1 inch on the bottom at least, because then your butt would lift the skirt even more, and the additional length would again even the length then out, and you would have a nice line from the side. Alright, so that's how I made this cute ruffled skirt. For me personally, this is such a timeless, fun piece. I remember actually I had a skirt like that when I was a kid. It was a red skirt and the ruffle was made of white lace with poppy blossoms on it, and it was just so cute. And when I made this one, I just remembered that skirt, and now I'm looking all over the internet for a lace with poppy blossoms. If I find one, I will definitely get it and make myself a skirt that's gonna look just like the skirt I had when I was a little girl. So anyway, that's gonna be it for today. As I mentioned, I have a sewing pattern for this skirt in my Etsy shop, so if you want that sewing pattern, it's linked down below. Thank you so much, because it always supports my channel and all my projects. And in general, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you guys enjoyed today's tutorial. Have a wonderful day, and I'll have another sewing tutorial for you soon. Bye!